Hey guys, what's up? Eddie Yahoo here with KissAnalog.com. Alright, so there's been a few people who have asked me, I guess been, impressed or whatever with some of my knowledge or some of my reviews or whatever it is. And they've asked, like, where do I get my experience and, who am I? So I thought, well, it's only fair since I'm on YouTube and I'm talking about all these things, these subjects, and so I thought, well, I guess it's fair that I give you my background. But at the same time, I kind of felt like, well, I don't know. It felt kind of weird talking about myself, but I think it is kind of a fair question, and I thought I'd spend this time to do it. And at the end of this video, I'll kind of tell you the special occasion that's happening right now as you're watching this video, if you're watching it as I broadcast it, which will be Saturday on the 24th October. Anyway, and if not, you'll hear the news anyway, but I'll tell you about it later. Alright guys, so let me just walk you through my resume, I guess. Well, first of all, I was brought up in Utah, United States of America. This VICA thing, I just put that down there. That's Vocational Industrial Classes of America. So when I was in high school, I joined that because I was taking all these electronics courses. We had a huge high school at the time. It was the biggest high school at the time. It was 3,600 students, I believe, registered, for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Okay, so that was a big high school at the time, and they had lots of classes, business classes, electronics courses, and so I was one of those guys that played football, but instead of going to the gym, taking the gym class that you could take a couple hours to work out, I took the electronics course. So I was like, I was actually a good football player at the time, but so the guys kind of were blown away that I wasn't going to their class. So vocational, that's what VIC is, okay? So I worked National Semiconductor graveyard shift in my senior year, and I would go inspect wafers. So there'd be these little things that are size, well, God, so it shows how old I'm getting, but CDs, they look like about the size of a CD-ROM. They're wafers, whole bunch of, I think there's 700 plus chips IC on the wafer, and so I drop it underneath the microscope, line up the microscope under, with these little fingers, and it touch down on the pads that were going to be soldered to the leads that go out to the chip, and then go through and inspect all the little chips, 700 chips on that wafer. And anyway, that's what I did in high school. And so that was 1 year in high school. Worked at a lumberyard too, so that helped the football days. Anyway, then I graduated high school and I went to join the Air Force, and I went to Texas. So I went to the Air Force, and I was a communications specialist. So, yeah. I was actually a communications security specialist. So I had a top secret security clearance, and I traveled around the country, going to different bases, doing different things, and it was kind of a fun job. It's one of those jobs I used to joke about years ago. Said it was a job worth $1 million, but I wouldn't pay a penny to do it again. It's one of those things. So, alright, so I got to the Air Force, and then I went back to Utah, where I'm come from, and I went to the university, and at the same time I went and got a job at a company called iOmega. I don't even know if they're around anymore, but back in the day they made these hard drives that were, well, anyway, they had a technology that was really cool, and they used this Bernoulli concept, and they could spin a floppy drive super fast and store a lot of information. And basically, in short, the Bernoulli concept was something to the effect where as a floppy disk is bouncing around and it's been spun super fast, when it came around to the reader write head, it kind of had these aerodynamic thing where it'd slide underneath it, and so it kind of straighten out. It wouldn't be wobbling around. It would come down and glide underneath it, and it could pass the, it could read and write during that time. So that was the thing they were known for back in the day. Well, that technology has been passed up by other things, of course. So, all right. So then I got married during that time. So then I went to California, and she was going to become a dentist. Well, she did become an orthodontist, but she went to California for dental school. So I went to California. I went to UCLA for my final year. Okay, so I went to the University of UCLA, and during that time I got a job at Lear-Siegler, or Lear-Stronics. And if you know that company, they were the first company that were kind of noted as fly-by-wire. So got rid of all the hydraulics, and when the pilot pushed the pedal or turned the wheel, instead of making hydraulics change the wings or whatever, the rudder, all the things that move on the aircraft, it would be electronic, solenoids kicking in, kicking out. So fly-by-wire. Lear-Siegler was known for that. We did flight control. So when I worked there, that's when I got into power supplies. A guy so they hired me as a student to do specs, to write specs. And then there's a guy there, a consultant, that was paid a lot of money. Even in today's standards, he was paid a lot of money. And he wanted a guy who liked analog, liked power stuff. And he needed a guy to work power supplies with him. And what they were doing is they're doing the flight control systems for advanced tactical aircraft. And it was really cool. So I was lucky I got hooked up with him. And I worked with him for 18 months, for about 2 years at Lear-Siegler. And then they were bought by another company, an English company, of all things, because they're a defense contractor. Well, anyway, Teledyne Controls was hiring. I sent a resume to them, called them up on the phone. The guy said, we're not really hiring right now. I said, well, the guy who trained me at Lear-Siegler, his name is Avi Bernstein. Wish I could find him. But, so Avi Bernstein I said, well, Avi Bernstein told me that you guys are looking for someone. They go, well, how do you know him? I told them I worked with him for 18 months. They said, well, can you start Monday? So I worked for them, solved a bunch of problems. They worked on aircraft, power supplies for aircraft too, the stuff that worked in the cockpit, not flight controls, but cockpit things like the displays and that. So that was a lot of fun. Well, then my wife was going to go to North Carolina for her orthodontics program. So I left that company to go to North Carolina, and I looked at the paper and I saw this job for an instructor for industrial electronics. So I went to interview for that, and they walked me into a conference room, a bunch of people sitting at the table, they're all sitting on the far side. The person walked me in and said, oh, sit anywhere you want. Well, obviously they wanted me to sit right in the middle in front of all these people, and I wanted to sit right at the end when I walked in, just for fun, just to make them all crank their head and look towards me. Thought that would have been funny. But of course I went and sat in the middle of them, and that guy walked around the other side of the table and sat down where he was supposed to. And one of the first questions they asked me was, how would you start an industrial electronics program? Well, I thought I was going there to be just an instructor. I ended up starting the program, and I told them, I said, well, I really don't know. I would imagine you'd have to have a curriculum, you have to write the curriculum, you have to build, the classwork, the coursework. And they said, that sounds right. So I got that job. Anyway, that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. My product being people, that was as rewarding as it can come. I mean, that was just amazing. I had these guys that were probably older than me at the time, and their families come to tell me how much the guy, their student liked me, and it was like, it was really special. So that was an amazing job. Well, then we left there to come back to Utah because she had graduated, had her orthodontics degree, came back to Utah. I started 2 businesses. One of them was Aho Electronics. I was going to consult. And the other one was the audio doctor, audio amplifier design and troubleshooting, test, repair. But I want anything audio amplifier. I wanted to repair it, test it. You know, I wanted to design it. Really is what I wanted to do. But then the big D, divorce happened. 13 years, flushed down the toilet. Bad day of my life. So, yeah, I needed to go work somewhere. So I went to work at a medical laser company. Good job. A lot of power supply stuff. I was a power supply engineer again. And, yeah, solved a lot of problems there. Also, servo controls, a lot of analog type stuff. I did a lot of work there. So then I left there to go to Boeing. Went to Washington. Now, I was thinking about leaving there, and there's another job in Utah that I wanted, but I saw this job, and I thought, what the heck? I mean, how can I pass up an interview? The guy talked to me on the phone, he sounded great. So I was on the plane flying there, and I thought, well, I really want this other job in Utah that sounds great, because it's just working for a design factory, basically doing a bunch of design, spitting them out. So I thought, well, all right, I'm not going to even listen to these guys at Boeing unless they offer me X dollars. Well, after the interview, it took all day. I went to different spots. The manager was awesome. They rushed me over to do the drug tests and all that kind of stuff. And then they took me over to the human resource group who was staying after hours so they could, you know, offer me a job. And they showed me this graph, and they said, oh, your experience, your education, this is where you should be, and you're down here for some reason. And it's because I chose jobs based on what I wanted, not on money. And they were like, well, you're worth this, you know, X amount. You're working for too little. And so, yeah, they raised the bar so high that I thought, okay, I got to go there. So it was a great option, because it was a great choice, because Boeing was awesome. Still one of the best companies I ever worked for. So I went to Boeing in Washington, not in Seattle, I was in Kent. And I went for the military space division. So I worked on power supplies there for satellites, okay? Well, the one program I was working on got put on hold, so they asked me to, I took a couple other assignments anyway. Short stories, I ended up going to California to work on the International Space Station. And there, I actually got an award for solving a power supply problem on a 10,000 watt power supply. I think there's 13 or maybe there's 26 of them. Forget, maybe 13 inside, 13 outside of the space station. And it runs on a 100 volt bus bar. They put out, well, 6,000 watts, but they really put out 10,000 watts. And anyway, there's a major problem, and I ended up solving it. So I got Engineering Excellence Award. From what I understand, that puts you up for a Snoopy Award, which in NASA terms, that's when you go to NASA, you get an award from them. That's a big deal. Well, obviously I don't want that, but just be, you know, eligible for one I thought was pretty awesome. So that was pretty cool. So then I left them because they're going to send me to another place in California to work on another satellite, and it was another move. And I thought, well, crap, man, if I'm going to move all the time, let me see what else. I wanted to move back to Utah. I didn't find Utah, but this company said, well, we know you want to go to Utah, but how about coming to Maryland, and we'll double your salary. I was like, well, all right. Okay, I'll do that. So I went to Maryland, and I was a contractor, and I worked at DirecTV, the set-top boxes for satellite television, and their big competitors, Dish TV. Well, they wanted to come out with a high-definition box. It was the first one. And they wanted to take the power supply that was normally on the board by itself, put it on the board with the digital stuff, So to do that, it had to be mostly surface mount. So I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. So they hired me for that. The guy that was designing the power supply for their normal set-top box, he had some kind of health issues. He went away. I didn't see him come back. So I said, that's all right. I'll do that too. So that's my problem. I'm always taking on extra work. So I ended up doing both power supplies, no problem. They loved it. They wanted to give me a bunch of money to stay there and all that. And I really, really liked those guys. They were awesome. But I really wanted to move back to Utah. And I didn't think it was fair to take this big sign-on bonus and stay there for a year and then duck out and move back to Utah. So, so I left. So I went to Utah. Basically, my salary got cut in half. Utah doesn't pay near as much as other states. So I worked for Square D. And I was a surge protection engineer. We were doing lightning protection. And I was hit by lightning. That's what that says, hit by lightning. So I was coming home from work one day, coming down the highway, just left work, was watching a lightning storm, loved thunderstorms. When I was in North Carolina, they had tons of lightning storms. And Utah has some pretty spectacular ones, but North Carolina has, amazing, cloud to cloud lightning bursts. It's just like when I worked at this school, I had to drive near the Virginia border, and I had this beautiful drive through the countryside, and it was just amazing light shows. So I was watching the light show, and then all of a sudden I noticed this flash, and anyway, long story, but yeah, lightning hit me. It basically hit my car. Car that was about a year old. Killed all the computers, killed the sensors on the wheels. Yeah, did some damage. So anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. Here I am, a lightning controls, and lightning. I'm doing designs to put surge protection into industrial, commercial, residential devices, and I get hit by lightning on the way home. So yeah, maybe Thor wasn't happy with the job I was doing. Anyway, I left that company. I went to PowerStream, little company in Utah. Great company. Owner's an awesome guy. I'm just a great company. At the time is when the gas prices were super high, and I had this car that had really bad gas mileage. And I saw these guys, L3, put up a job, and I thought, man, that's way closer to my house. Is it going back to military type work, defense contract work, and just big company, good company to retire with, that kind of thing. So I left that company, kind of second guessed myself that I did that ever since I left them. I went to L3, and right around that time I had another big D, another divorce, second one. Bummer. The good thing, we're still friends. Great, good girl. And I had a daughter with her. And my daughter's amazing. So everything works out the way it's supposed to, right? Well, so L3, I have no idea what's beeping right now. So L3, defense contractor, power supply engineer with them for almost 13 years. Designed power supplies for vehicle, Navy, went off on Navy ships, helped solve some electrical problems. We did airborne, just anything military. We did power supplies for communication systems. So a lot of fun work there, super, super busy. But of all these companies, these guys appreciate power supply guys the least. So I left them because I was just working like a dog and wasn't getting appreciated. There you go. So I didn't want to talk about that when I was working for them. But recently I changed jobs, and new company is amazing. So really, really happy with where I am now, and So that's my history. One thing I wanted to mention, when I was at PowerStream, I did the power supply design. Somehow the Germans, somehow they learned about it, and okay, let me explain something. At this company, we did a lot of projects that were marketed to everybody, and we also did a lot of projects that companies would come to us and ask us to design something specific, and we'd help them work it out what they needed, and we'd do it for them. Well, one of the projects I did was a bone saw, and it was so universal that it was kind of marketed as a power supply did anything, everything, basically. And so the Germans called us up and said, hey, we're going to send this medical experiment up in the space station, and if your power supply could do this, you know, it'd be awesome. And I thought about it, and I said, well, let me go see if I can make it do that. It had some firmware that kind of ran behind it, and essentially what they wanted, I forget what frequency it was, like say 10 kilohertz. They wanted to put a sine wave in, and they wanted the power to be a sine wave out. So they basically wanted an audio amplifier. Essentially that's what they wanted. And so I modified the power supply to do that. And so they gave a sine wave in, I gave a sine wave out with an amplification and something under 80 watts, under 100 watts for sure. So anyway, they loved it. Worked beautiful for them. And they gave some nice compliments. Well, to get nice compliments from the Germans, I always feel that's pretty, you know, because they're pretty picky. So I felt pretty good about that. There's a few things, you know, I could name different things that I did at different companies that worked out really well. The short time I was with Boeing, I was given multiple awards. The one I talked about, the Engineering Excellence Award, that was just one I'm most proud of. But in the short time I was there, you know, it seemed like 6 months wouldn't go by and I'd get an award for something. And so I got a lot of awards, different companies I worked for, and I guess I've always just enjoyed electronics, and that's why I'm doing the YouTube channel, because I feel like, you know, I want to share what I know, and I want to work at my bench, and it's a way to bring friends in and do it together. So I've really enjoyed it, and so I do have some experience behind me. When I worked at Square D, I was actually UL certified to certify the testing per UL standards, spacings, you know, clearance, that kind of thing. We did lightning protection, so I actually designed a fuse there for lightning protection. I thought it was pretty cool. But so at this company, I designed a power supply that pretty much everybody on the team used that same design for multiple projects. It's been used all over the place. So yeah, I've been around for a while, done a few things, and I really enjoy audio. I really enjoy you know, power supply design, audio amplifier design, and the two go together really well. And anything to do with analog electronics, and I like having some firmware, or, you know, having somebody else write the firmware for me. But you know, the capabilities you can do with some firmware control with your analog electronics is really cool. But yeah, all right. Anyway, that's enough. So I think that kind of covers my background, and probably maybe did more than, yeah, if any of you guys are still listening, thanks for watching. And I really appreciate the Patreons. You know, it's a little as $1 a month to sign up as a Patreon, and I've been, I don't know, everybody that signs up, I'm just really appreciative. I think it's pretty amazing that people do that, and I really honestly appreciate that. And everybody watching the videos and who comments, you know, I'm really appreciative of the time you guys spend and give me comments and suggestions and how I can improve this or questions about this, and you know, and hey, it seems like you know something about this. What do you think about that? So I love all that stuff, and I try to answer them all. Sometimes it takes me a week, maybe even 2 weeks to get response out, but I try to respond instead of just giving a like or a thumbs up. I really actually try to respond to them all. Maybe someday I won't be able to do that. Probably not. I mean, who knows? Hopefully I'll grow big enough that I won't be able to. But I don't know. I mean, at the same time, it's really nice to be able to have that relationship. So I'll be able to answer some, you know, always, but maybe not all always. But all right, appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend. So the big news, I told you I'd tell you. A lot of my dear friends don't even know this yet. Hopefully they'll know today. With this stupid thing that's going on in the world today, where we can't get together and all this stuff, I'm getting married again. Third time's a charm, right? And you know what? Every time's been a charm. Everything's helped me and taught me something. And I had my daughter. The first one was a killer. Second one, you know, we had my daughter. And this third one's the last one. So it's the last chapter, right? And it's going to happen the 24th. Today's the 23rd. Hopefully I'll be able to edit this in the next half an hour. And that means it might be kind of rough. Sorry about that. But big day tomorrow. So I got to go to bed. And thanks for watching. Just wanted to throw this video out. Okay? Alright. See you guys. Thanks for watching. And thanks for the support.